I'm going to walk you through today how we at Simmons are approaching what we call the OTT conundrum, something that I'm sure all of you here can relate to. And I was just taking some notes earlier today sitting through some of the sessions, and certainly heard some of the themes that are connected to what I'm going to talk about here. One thing that stuck out to me earlier in the day was the commentary from Edwin from BuzzFeed talking about the end of demographics and the evolution of psychographics. And one of the key points that we're hitting on here with the video analytics research and the video analytics data that we're coming out with is a better way to actually tie psychographics into media planning and eventually media buying, and do it in a way that really looks across all of the platforms that consumers have to watch video today. So to give you an idea what we're going to go through, I'm going to do a quick review of our measurement vision. And then dive right into what our approach is for developing comprehensive video measurement and insights, which we're calling right now a catchy product name of video analytics. And we'll take you through what that data, what we expect it to look like, because it's data that we have been modeling and that we're literally in QC for right now. So very soon we hope to have real data to fill in those slides with. And then talk a little bit about, at the end of the day, what does this mean for media planning and eventually media buying. Okay. So for those of you who were here last year and happened to attend the Simmons presentation by Pat Pellegrini, our CRO and president, you might remember that he talked about measurement science and what the measurement science vision was for Simmons. At the time we were talking about, or he was talking about, a fusion that we were working on with a different data set, but it nonetheless is extremely relevant to what we intend to do and what we've been working on with video. And to talk about it in a non-methodologist type of way, the way that I think about measurement science and the measurement vision for us at Simmons is that we have our bedrock, right? One of the speakers earlier had talked about having your data be grounded. It has to be grounded somewhere. So everything that we do is grounded in our National Consumer Survey that we've been running for many, many, many years. And we take a lot of pride in the fact that we stick very closely to some methodological soundness around sample design, weighting, calibration, making sure that it's a projectable sample, etc. But at the same time, as we all know, whether you're talking about television or talking about any other type of content consumption or even interaction from a brand standpoint, there's all this passively collected data out there, or data that is waiting to be passively collected. Whether we're talking about meter data or data in the wild that's just sort of thrown off as consumers go about their daily lives. And that is, of course, data that we as researchers, we've heard a lot of talk about big data and small data, are really itching to capture. And our goal with measurement science is to take the best of both worlds and collect this data passively, but do it in a way that the output is then greater than what it would have been had we not done appropriate sample design, weighting, calibration, validation, and all the kinds of things that you, as a researcher, want to take data through. And I'm going to walk you through, at a very high level, how we're actually doing this with video analytics. And the main goals here with measurement science for us are to, number one, minimize sample burden. So, although we think about our data as researchers as our greatest resource, the truth is that the people who are answering our surveys or who are giving us our data are our greatest natural resource. And so we want to make sure to minimize the burden on what we're asking them to self-report when we actually have all these great ways, or all of these opportunities, I should say, to collect data passively. And we've done that before. We've done that with some other data that we collect through another research product of ours, and we're doing that with video analytics. But the only way to do this right is to be able to model and calibrate across data so that you get to that one version of the truth, or to that grounded data that everybody can feel comfortable with and feel that you've got this data that actually speaks the truth, across clients, across different outside resources that you may use to validate it against, et cetera. Okay, So bringing this back to video, bringing this back to media, no surprise, we've heard it over and over again, video consumption is not linear and live anymore. So to give you our take on it and what our data looks like, we took a look at data from our sister company, Symphony Advanced Media, or SAM, which I think many of you in here may be familiar with. We looked at viewing for broadcast and for cable overall and said, all right, so what percentage is live, what percentage is DVR plus 7, what percentage is VOD plus 3, which is what Nielsen captures currently, and what are DVR plus 7 VOD. Oh, these are, sorry, a little bit repeatable, but anyway. So these three pieces of the pie that popped up at the end, that is essentially what is not being captured today in currency. And this is where there's a lot of pain point and where we've seen in previous presentations, pulling on internal data or pulling on other data sources, coming up with sort of in-house solutions to figure out what the total viewership picture looks like. Because it turns out that between 20 to 26% of viewing happens outside of this universe. And that's a challenge for media companies as money's left on the table. Obviously for advertisers, it's not getting a full picture of how they should actually be planning their media. And along with this, I said we were gonna talk about psychographics. When we took a look at psychographics based on our own data of OTT users versus non-OTT users, I think as researchers, we can all accept that demographics are no longer enough. They really never have been enough when it comes to understanding consumers in general, when it comes to doing segmentations, et cetera. But that's really how television is bought. It's really how media is kind of talked about from a currency perspective. But that's no longer enough. So the psychographics for someone who watches OTT is obviously a person who's going to be a little bit more digital in nature. A person who does not watch OTT at all is someone who's going to be more traditional, more linear, doing things like reading a newspaper on most days, having different interest areas, etc. And we've heard talk earlier about Gen X and Gen Z and the fact that a lot of this is driven by younger consumers, and that's of course going to grow. But when we looked at our own data, it wasn't differentiated enough simply by age or simply by demographics. And in fact, if you look at the trends and look at OTT and digital viewership over the years by different age groups, it's growing across these age groups. So the point here is really that demographics are just not enough, especially if you have other ways out there to enrich the data when you're considering a comprehensive look at video viewership. And this, of course, funnels down into the programming level. So you can take a look at how those who watch Gotham are very different from those who watch the first 48, and think about if you could kind of match up what the drivers might be behind watching a television show and match that with the drivers or the kind of matching attitudes that are primed in advertising. And there are studies that show that when you can match those up appropriately, you have better receptivity to that advertising. So again, being able to build psychographics into the media planning, the media buying process is what we were really looking to explore and see how far into that we could get with our video analytics data. So as we thought about what we have at Simmons with the National Consumer Study, and that being our bedrock, along with our sister company, Symphony Advanced Media, we thought about, all right, if we want to take a deeper look here and see if we can get to this total audience measurement, what are the pillars that need to be a part of this kind of data? And the first one was, we need to be able to look across linear, SVOD, over the top, and all of these other connected devices that seem to be multiplying and are only going to continue to grow. The second was, being who we are, being Simmons, being a consumer measurement company. We want to be able to marry that kind of measurement to consumer attributes like the psychographics, purchase intent, brand preferences, etc. And key here, for us at least, is to be able to put together reporting metrics, not only the reach and the indices, which are the kinds of things that you would get out of the self-reported data from Simmons today, but also ratings. Not because we are looking to be a ratings company. We're not looking to be a ratings company. But we know that with this kind of data to put it out in the marketplace, we're going to have clients come to us and say, well, how does that compare to what I'm getting from Nielsen? How does that compare to these other external data sources? And so we need to know, and we need to be able to come out to the marketplace and say that you're getting apples to apples, and the numbers that you're seeing, at least across what's being captured by currency today, jive generally well with the numbers that are coming out of what we're providing you, and therefore when you look at some of the other data like over the top and other things that are outside of currency today, that's going to give you a certain amount of confidence. And the last piece that is in the roadmap for us, and something that we're working on and will work on once we get this first batch of data out into the marketplace, is making it actionable. So, we already have ways that we're making data actionable across digital platforms. We've already started to, work with clients across addressable TV, and we want to be able to do that more once we've exposed this data and the over-the-top data even further. So, okay, just to dive a little bit deeper into what the different pieces are that we envision and that we're working on and that we're QAing right now for video analytics. The pieces are, it starts with Simmons, the NCS, where you've got these in-depth preferences, demographics, brand affinities, et cetera. And then on the other side, you have SAM and their Video Pulse product, which I imagine, raise your hand if you're familiar with SAM in any way, shape, or form. Okay, not as many as I thought. But SAM basically has this audio content recognition technology that can pick up a certain amount of content, of video content, and then tie that back to not only what program it was, can measure it across, what's it, television, mobile, social, PC, can look at the network level, can look at the day part level, tracking across a number of different, in-home, out-of-home, et cetera. And, as I said, SAM is a sister company, so we're not taking everything here that SAM does, but we're working with them to sort of say, all right, so if we want to have this product out here that's going to provide each of those 4 pieces that I talked about on the earlier slide, we're going to put this together so that it gives you a media planning tool that combines that rich consumer data, but you can put it in the context of that 360 view and that total view of where consumers are watching video, be it at the network level, be it at the program level, be it over the top, et cetera. So what does this mean in terms of, all right, metrics? What kind of metrics are you going to get here? What are you going to get from each piece of this? On the video side, what we're going to look at is live, DVR, VOD, network apps, and then of course all of these other OTT apps. And from the feedback that we've gotten from our alpha clients was that network apps are pretty important to look at, because there's this question of, is live viewership, is viewership going to my app? Is viewership going to other over the top? We saw earlier in the ABC presentation looking at the overlap of watching network shows but watching it on OTT. So being able to look at network apps as a part of this, we know is important. On top of that, you've got the consumer data that is from the NCS, so 60,000 variables, 8,000 brands, 500 product categories, attitudes, opinions, et cetera. And from the actual metrics that you'll be able to pull from when you're looking at any of these pieces at the end of the day is the reach and the index, the average minute audience, so there's your rating. And then we'll look at networks and shows, and for those who are looking very much at day parts and scheduling and whatnot, that is going to be available as well. All right, so these are the different components shown in a couple of different ways, just to kind of be clear about what we're trying to do. So I'm going to talk, there we go, high level about the methodology. I'm not a methodologist, I should say. And we're going to have some opportunity later on to present some more thought leadership and some papers around the methodology. But at a high level, how did we put these two pieces together? On the top, we've got the NCS 25,000 respondents that's updated on a quarterly basis with fresh sample. And then we're marrying that with this cross-device video panel from SAM, so 15,000 panelists. And, fusing this together, there was the first piece that we were very, very much aware of, and which I think was one of the challenges whenever you're doing some kind of fusion with two different types of data, is the NCS is this probabilistic projectable sample, right? Like I said, this is our bedrock. This is, we know that we've applied all of the important pieces around measurement science to this. And then SAM is a convenient sample. So you essentially have an equal opportunity to sign up and be a part of this metered panel. And with that, just by nature of the way the data is, come biases. So our challenge was, all right, what's the best way, if we're going to fuse these two data sources together, to make sure that we're calibrating it in a way that is going to hold water. So what we did is we went out and we created a calibration panel. Late last year, we went to the SAM panel and we recruited for 1,000 panelists who took our fully programmed online version of our NCS survey. So what we ended up with then was 1,000 people who we had both the SAM data on, so all of that video data on, but who we now also had all of our NCS data on. And that allowed us to, when we calibrated and put together different models, take a look at what the differences in behavior are between the samples. So, understand across, any of the NCS variables that they had in common, how are they different, where might some of the biases be, and then take that into account as we were building the models. And because the goal here obviously is to put all of this SAM data and predict that data onto the NCS, through data exploration, it allowed us to identify what those predictive variables were within the NCS that would help us lead to what SAM behavior would look like for those individuals. And then because we knew rating was important and we know that others are going to be looking at other external sources of ratings, it gave us a good starting point to understand, when we put the rating together, how is it different between Simmons and what you get out of SAM. So as I said, this data very quite literally is in the QA stages as we speak. So don't have any real data to show today, but I've been getting emails saying, can we put this use case and this use case using real data into slides? So next time you see this, hopefully it'll be real data. But let's take a use case here, novelty-seeking foreign travelers. So somebody who you could say from the NCS would be someone who's traveled abroad recently and through a number of attitudinal measures, pick one, pick many, are people who really live life in search of new, novel, differentiating experiences, okay? So you start with, all right, who are these consumers? And as a researcher, you start with the demographics. You see that there tend to be female, about 42, majority are married, make pretty good income, relatively well-educated group of consumers. Doesn't tell you a whole lot else though. Doesn't really tell you from a creative standpoint what's going to resonate with them. Doesn't really give you a lot of flavor. So still working on the NCS data, on the Simmons data here, you could dive into what are some of their behaviors or some of their lifestyle drivers. And you would find that, well, 31% of them are workaholics. And by the way, they use mobile quite a bit, not only for connecting socially, but for staying connected to their work life. They're enrolled in frequent flyer programs, so they probably have loyalty to at least one, probably more airlines, and they're true foodies. So you get this sense that they're really into kind of going after the experience, which makes sense given their novelty-seeking behavior, their novelty-seeking attitudes. And we can pull in some other attitudes. I prefer food that's presented as an art form. They're seen as thought leaders when it comes to financial matters, health and nutrition. So this is a pretty dynamic group and a pretty, I think, interesting group if you are a media company and you're trying to sell into an audience like this and make the case that this is an attractive group. You have Many other data points that you could, think about for who you want to partner with, et cetera, because we've got data on where do they shop, where are they most likely to eat or drink, what kind of activities do they participate in, and it starts to give you this really nice, well-rounded picture of who this particular type of consumer is. So then, the next step is to, all right, so how are we going to reach this consumer? What type of content do they consume? And historically today, with Simmons data, we have information on, well, what are the type of websites they're visiting? What's the type of content that they're consuming online? What are the type of app types that they're using to help start to put together this, this media planning exercise that you would go through? And now with video analytics, what you've got is the top TV content, which we've had on a self-reported basis, but now we have this on a passively collected basis through SAM. And you see networks coming up, ABC, HGTV, CBS, nice mix of broadcast and cable here. But you'll see second is House of Cards coming up on Netflix. So this is just to demonstrate that this is really the first time that you'll be able to pull someone's or some segments or audiences television viewership and see not only the top broadcast and cable networks, but you'll be able to see the OTT networks. You'll be able to see the original programming on those networks. And if you are looking at, let's say, Modern Family, or any of these networks that are not strictly OTT, will be able to show you, all right, so the rating for Modern Family watching live is XYZ, DVR, the rating is XYZ, VOD, OTT, etc. So we're really dimensionalizing the data in a way that we hadn't been able to do before, and that is really giving us, I think, that much more reach and that much more visibility into what viewership is looking like, and frankly is doing some of the things that we've seen some other presenters do today with their own in-house data, and now making this available from a third-party perspective. So the other way to look at this data, which is quite similar to what I've seen in a couple of presentations today, is looking at that incremental reach. So what does it actually look like if you are, and we're also going to have, I shouldn't forget, the day part measures. So similar to what you have in Nielsen today, again, you'll be able to see that with our data. So when it comes to the incremental reach here, and again, what networks have been trying to do in-house, this is something that we're going to have built into this data. Where you see that for Modern Family, for this particular segment, we start with a rating of 4.46, and then we add in DVR, and you can calculate a lift factor from there, plus VOD, and then imagine being able to get to OTT, and thus giving you the total audience view, and calculating a lift factor and seeing whether or not the rating goes up, goes down, etc. And really be able to understand, all right, so really what is my total opportunity here, and what is my total opportunity if I'm thinking about it in live, if I'm thinking about it in time shifting scenarios, if I'm thinking about it in OTT, and what are my vehicles for advertising across all of these, and how should I think about my media spend across all of those. So that's where we are, or that's where we're going to be very shortly. We have a list of alpha customers who are going to be helping vet this for us, and plan to bring this to market very soon before the end of the quarter in time for 2017 television planning. And here's where we'd like to go next. So we know that in the planning phase, what goes into building out an audience, understanding an audience, putting the creative together for an audience, and figuring out what generally where you want to allocate your media spend for that audience. There are a lot of data points that go into that to really create a rich look at what a consumer segment is and who an audience is. But on the buying side, the way that buying works right now, a lot of that has to get thrown to the wayside. Because what you're really looking at on the buying side are demos, namely age and gender. So imagine a place in which you'd be able to port that data over to the buy side and be able to take with you not only all of this data that you're already using in planning, but take with you that knowledge and be able to buy against the data or the vehicles that aren't measured in currency today, and optimize for these really specific audiences that are much more than just age and gender alone. So that's a place where we'd like to go. That's a place where we have some ideas ongoing, and we've got a really smart stats team that can reduce some of this to something that could potentially be used now in MediaOcean. And of course, with this data, if you want to, after you've made the buys and after the ads have gone out, and you want to be able to come back and do some post analysis, that is certainly easy enough to do and understand, from this total viewership perspective, did the people who you thought you were targeting actually watch the program that you bought on in the mode that you were buying against? So that's where we want to go, and where we have some ideas. So hopefully the next time that you see somebody from Simmons, and likely it'll be Pat at an upcoming conference talking about what we're doing in video analytics, we'll have some real data to show you. But what we really just wanted to walk you through today, especially in the context of all the conversation that's been going on around all the different ways that people have to consume video today, is the way that we're approaching it is building this high quality probability sample that we built specifically for calibration purposes to allow us to build this high quality fusion. And really what we hope it's going to do is give you more flexibility and more visibility into understanding the psychographics of people, products, brands, but also really take that into account when you're doing your media buys, measuring media, et cetera, by fusing that with the cross-platform video data that we're getting from Sam. And in the end, like I said, it's in the plan and where we'd like to go, is using all of that data to optimize not only the media planning piece, because you now have the OTT side of things, but optimize the buying as well.